Morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Maria Pressentin speaking out of Singapore. And we have today a wonderful serial entrepreneur to speak with, Arthur Woods, talking out of USA. We also have Marina Nina, the CEO of Radio Works out of UK. First and foremost, I wanted to absolutely talk about the theme that we're going to be talking about the next few months. We have interviews piled up for the next few months with thought leaders, entrepreneurs, corporate entrepreneurs. And the theme that we talk about here in Singapore is very much focused on purposeful leadership. So we're dealing with thought leaders and practitioners that would, share their ideas, their experiences to teach us a little bit about what it is to be a thoughtful leader and a purposeful leader. And it's very much about living with purpose and doing the work with purpose. So today we have invited Arthur Woods, who is the co-founder of Imperative. Arthur is a serious social entrepreneur. He leads partnerships and business development at Imperative. He has been a 3-time TEDx speaker, as well as the World Economic Forum Global Shaper. Arthur previously led operations for YouTube's education and co-founded Out in Tech and Social Impact 360. Arthur, thank you so much for being our guest today. It's a wonderful experience to have you on board. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
So Arthur, I follow you a lot in LinkedIn. I look at here in Singapore, you looking at the interviews and listening to the interviews of STARDUST is a big deal because we learn so much about leadership and different aspects of leadership. And you've been interviewed a few times already, and that's where I got to know you. So here's the thing. You have a fantastic CV. You have a huge background. You're a serial entrepreneur. You have a fantastic educational background, and you've been entrepreneurs in different companies so many times, and now at Imperative. I was just wondering, you've got a brilliant CV, but who's this man behind the CV? Could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. Well, I think it all starts for me back in early childhood, where, after my parents divorced, I had, a single parent family that I was living in, and the most amazing mother who never talked about a job, never talked about a career, but talked about a calling. She never encouraged me to go make a lot of money or have a job that would bring a lot of pride and status to the family. She always talked about finding work that you really loved. And even for her, as someone who struggled to make ends meet at times, raising a single parent, as a single parent, she always talked about how through the act of work, we help people. We actually make a difference in the lives of other people through the act of working every day. And that stuck with me at a very young age. And so when I, went off to college, I started my very first company and really learned personally that work was way more of a craft than it was an occupation. That through the act of working, I could build community. And I always considered my occupation, my work, as an expression of who I was, an extension of who I was. And really sort of fusing that narrative of work being a means of serving others and that early experience of work personally as a means of expressing myself. It wasn't until I got to the corporate world and really discovered that the average person is unfulfilled and disengaged in their job. And for me, anchoring to a very different story of what work really could be, I couldn't fathom that. So that was really what early on prompted me to see work such a different way and really inspired me to engage in the work that we're now leading in Imperative.
Well, that's amazing. I find it very curious in the older generation from your mom. She talks about active working. What is that all about?
Well, the research we've spearheaded an Imperative based on early research around this concept of what's called psychological work orientation points to the fact that at an early age, largely based on our role models, we form a story about what work is and what work isn't. It's a story of the relationship that we as individuals will have to our occupations. And what the early research points to is the fact that, a whole subset of our workforce sees work as a means to an end. They see work as a job, as a paycheck. The moment they win the lottery or they get enough money, work no longer plays a vital role in their lives. You have another subset that sees work largely through an opportunistic lens, in what's called sort of status or career-oriented, orientation. And you have this third subset, which I would say largely, I would put my mother in this bucket, seeing work largely as a means of serving others and being fulfilled by the act of working. And that's a group that we call purpose-oriented. With these individuals, if they won the lottery, they wouldn't stop working because work is really where they gain fulfillment. And so, for my mom, early on, she always told me stories of work being about that third bucket, a calling, a means of serving others. And it really did point, this research that we've led really did point to the fact that we don't, start to form that story, during our first job. We form that story largely in our childhood, thanks to the role models we have in our lives who do set this really sort of bar for how we will show up and see the workforce. So I think early on, regardless of generation, you have these role models. And for me, I was blessed to have role models who did talk about work as a calling and not just as a job or a career.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So what I can hear from you is that your mom is definitely one of your biggest mentors in life, because it formed you basically. It got you to where you are partly. That's amazing. Tell us a little bit about the work that you do in Imperative.
Absolutely. So, we founded Imperative back at the end of 2013, and the story is, for me, coming up in that entrepreneurial world and experiencing the sort of harsh reality of the corporate world, I discovered firsthand that the average employee is disengaged and unfulfilled in their jobs. You read the annual engagement studies from organizations like Gallup that have pointed to the fact that 2/3 of our workforce is disengaged in their work every day. 2/3 operating at a fraction of the potential that they really could harness in their jobs. And I saw that firsthand even at a company like Google, which I had put up on a pedestal as sort of the utopia of work. I noticed firsthand that countless people were unfulfilled in their jobs there. They had every material perk they could ever wish for, but they were unfulfilled and disengaged in their jobs. And it really prompted me to change my entire work context and seek out my own sort of more fulfilling work at Google. I moved over to help spearhead the education division at YouTube, engaged in what I would consider to be a very sort of high impact job, very almost quasi-philanthropic job. And I received countless emails from around the company of people who wanted to work at YouTube EDU. They wanted to engage in this kind of purposeful work, and collected these emails over the course of my time there and had hundreds of these emails. And really this caused me to sort of step back and ask, is everyone in pursuit of purpose? And if a place like Google is even struggling to connect people to purpose, what does it say about the rest of our workforce? It prompted me to leave Google ultimately and start to really holistically think about more that we could do to innovate in the workplace so that every employee, regardless of their income level or their education, could be connected to fulfillment in their work, because we spend the majority of our lives at work.
There's a lot of research. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, yes, please, go ahead.
There's a lot of research that talks about that. Most recent one that I was reading just a couple of months ago, because I do write papers on this field as well. It's from BCG in Germany. And basically, they interviewed tons of millennials, about 200,000 of them in Europe. What happens is that the top 3 retention programs that would obviously keep the millennials in their companies in the positions where they are today, the top 3 is actually having meaningful work. Aside from having good relationships with their boss, their colleagues, as well as, being thanked for on anything that they do. You see, the thing is, money is not even there. It's not even top 3 anymore. It's like the top 8. And so money becomes a commodity, and it's very much in line with what you just said.
Absolutely. And, make no mistake, money is not something we're against. I live in New York City, one of the most expensive cities in the world. I'm a huge advocate of paying people.
Of course.
But, I think our work has pointed to the fact that we have built a culture of work around money and status. When you read the average job description, it exudes, here's what we want of you, and here's what we will pay you, and here's the job title we will give you. It doesn't speak to purpose. So we've really built this material culture around work, and we've missed the glaring fact that, people are all in pursuit of purpose in life. Not everyone believes it's even possible at work. But if we do spend the majority of our time in our lives in our occupations every day, fulfillment and meaning really is the pinnacle of what we can really hope for. So to circuitously answer your question, what we realized that imperative was, we can't ever even hope to manage purpose or help organizations think about purpose or individuals think about purpose if we don't have a way to measure it, if we don't have a common language to express it. And so I teamed up with one of the greatest entrepreneurs I could ever hope to work with, Aaron Hurst, the founder of the Taproot Foundation. Aaron was, by all intents and purposes, the expert of purpose. He founded the Taproot Foundation in 2001, spearheaded the world's greatest model centered around intrinsic motivation and purpose, where he got tens of thousands of pro bono consultants to donate their time and their skills to serve local nonprofits using the same skill sets they used in their day jobs out in the community. And the only difference was he didn't pay people or promise to promote people for doing that work. They went out and served these nonprofits with their great skills because they said it gave them purpose. And Aaron, over the course of 15 years, began to study what it was that intrinsically motivated people in pro bono, and discovered that every person gains meaning in a unique way. And the very things that give us meaning in pro bono are relevant in our day jobs. So we began to build tools that help people answer those questions of what does give me meaning? What is my purpose? And over the course of the last 5 years, we've grown that to be a full movement and a full series of tools. And we've gotten a chance to work with over 100 leading organizations, really dedicated to empowering their people and helping their people answer this question of purpose. That really is what our work has culminated to become.
That's amazing. That's really amazing. And I personally actually read The Purpose Economy by Aaron Hurst, and I was fascinated about it. And, here in Asia, and I work around Asia Pacific quite a lot, what do you think in terms of your experiences helping organizations, and I'm sure some of them have, have subsidiaries and, the crossover businesses here to Asia as well in terms of your clients. Here when I work in Asia, there are people that are extremely purpose-driven, even within organizations that are for-profit. It seems to be kind of like an either-or dilemma for them. Oh, I'll do charity, when I have money. I'll do some charity and retire and give more time for the community, because right now I've got to pay my dues and pay for the family and living and all that kind of stuff. So it seems to me that here in Asia, and perhaps Marina, you could add to it, whether parts of Europe or UK where you're living is the same concept. But here in Asia, people are in crossroads. Many people want to help. They want to work for on a pro bono basis. They want to give their time to community to gain fulfillment, but to service the community as well. But then there's this either or, are you going to be making money if you did something like that? So there's a big question mark. I just have a feeling that people are split in the middle. What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. Well, it's a great question, and Marina, I would love your thoughts as well on this. I mean, I think what we have discovered in our research, we did a study last year with LinkedIn called the Global Workforce Purpose Index. It studied nearly 27,000 people globally to fundamentally ask them this question of why do you come to work? And what we discovered was APAC, Asia Pacific, was just as purpose oriented as the United States, essentially, that about a third of the global workforce in Asia Pacific comes to work primarily for purpose. You have a huge portion, about half of the workforce, that comes to work primarily for status. And the remaining group, roughly 20%, comes to work primarily for money. So it was actually not that it was a glaring issue, but really that APAC falls right kind of in the average of the globe. Now, as you can imagine, regions like Scandinavia are very purpose-oriented. Nearly a half of the workforce in that region comes to work primarily for purpose. And then you see see regions like Northern Africa and the Middle East that were at the bottom kind of quartile. So certainly in my experience being in Singapore, being throughout Asia, I can see that the culture of work has largely become material and sort of status oriented, but you are meeting some amazing pockets of people who are coming and saying, we really want more out of work. We want fulfillment and meaning, and we can get paid while we can be fulfilled. Marina, I'd love your thoughts though, what you're seeing as well.
Yes, I'm listening and I'm fascinating. I'm thinking, have you been inside my mind already? Thank you so much for this opportunity to share my own experience. And of course, in London, as well as New York City, London is populated by brilliant minds, by people who have the drive to succeed. And I was one of these people till I retired in 2012. And what happened, I was somebody taking around 150 calls a day, and I retired very early. I was only 51 years old, simply because I reached all my goals. I even exceeded them, and it was time for me now to let others deliver their own passion. So what happened soon after that, within 3 months, I became alienated from my purpose, which was my work. This is how much I love my work. But once I retired, I realized that I had nothing outside that environment. So from taking 150 calls a day, I had nobody to talk with because my clients are coming from all over the world. So it was almost like thinking, I've done it all, it's time to go. So I went through this dark moment, almost like a tunnel, for the very first time in my life, when I realized that must be more to life. And I went into a discovery journey into my own mind, but first I had to be sick and I couldn't walk, and nobody, no medical opinion would, stand up, because they couldn't understand what's wrong with me. Was medically was nothing wrong. So I had to go through this. I don't know if you remember, perhaps you are too young to remember these Kodak pictures, when you had to take the actual camera into a dark room to develop the picture. So this is exactly what had happened. So I had to go through that developing process to develop my own colors. As before, I thought it's enough to align my beliefs, my values, and my actions to be successful. Even not many times I felt successful, but I was successful. And now I realize that actually, unless you align your beliefs, your values, and your actions with your emotions, is nothing. Unless you discover your purpose, unless you realize what it is that wakes you up in the morning with no alarm clock. Unless you realize that this is my unique gift, and it is my moral duty to develop it, to master it, and gift it back into the world to pay forward. It is very little scope into making money. So as I said, I was 51 years old when I retired, and now I am 56 years young. After 5 years of discovering who I am, my true worth, what is my unique talent, my own gift that I put my name on it. I feel that I never been so vibrant, so excited about life, so curious about other people's story. And I just feel that living your life with purpose, to start with, means leading your life with purpose. Purpose is what makes you, because we are all coming from the same ocean of love. We are just a drop, and we are going around, and we are delivering our own oxygen and going back into the ocean of love where we came from. But before we do that, we have to bring out our own essence. There is a unique essence about you, Arthur. There is a unique essence about you, Maria, that is so unique to you and will never be replicated. And I think it is your moral duty, and it is my moral duty, to deliver that essence. Because people go around in their daily life and they create a lot. Sometimes they have to suppress the creativity instinct because they have so much going on in their mind, and they don't necessarily know, where to stop or what to focus on. So creating is something that is natural to human beings. But I think what is a lack of guidance is delivering what you create. So I know people celebrate birthday once a year. I celebrate it each day. Each day I wake up, I'm happy with no reason, and I tell to myself, happy birthday, Marina. What are you going to do about today? Because this day was given to me for a reason. And there were moments in my life when I thought, this is the end. I won't be able to wake up again. And I'm still here. I'm here for a purpose that is unique to me. And it's part of this emotional intelligence evolution that's happening in the world. And yes, I don't think money is anything to do with living your life with purpose. And yes, you need the fortune to be able to make the difference. But if you think about making the difference, start with you. If you understand the art of science of being you, if you have the courage to deliver you, if you have the inspiration, which is in very short supply those days because it's so much hand for external goals that it's almost like not enough energy left to focus on your inner self, to realize your abundant self, to understand what is that unique quality, that unique set of skills you already hold, that you could master it and give and never run out of. So I'm so inspired by both of you in saying purpose is what makes you. And I understand, Arthur, from your own story. I was listening to you, and I feel that the genius you hold as a person means nothing unless you deliver your genius. We started a platform in London, and now it's all over the world, called Radio Works World, and it's all about sharing your stardust. It's about not thinking much about what other people think of you, what your boss might think of you. just tell people who you are. Focus on what you think of yourself. And I love your project. I think it's beyond brilliant. The imperative story alone is such an inspiration. Kickstart, awakening moment. It's enough to listen to that story, to think, oh my God, there is more, must be more. Because if you think about, each atom in your body is coming from a different star. So a supernova had to happen for you to become you, for your life to happen, and to let that going by without discovering your purpose, without allowing yourself to feel inspired to write a song, to write a story, to invent something that might change somebody else's life, I think it's cruelty. I think it's a moral sin. So I so believe in purpose, and I so believe in what you two guys are doing. I think it's almost like you are leaving people with no excuse to discover and deliver their own purpose.
I love it, Marina. You've totally inspired me, and I couldn't have said it better myself. I mean, I think the truth is, what's interesting about this subject is it's something that's so near and dear to our hearts. And if we step back and if we go on a spiritual retreat, or we spend time, we create the space to ask ourselves these very important questions, we really all land on the same kind of core realizations that we do want to bring our full selves to what we do. We want to be at our best. We want to feel inspired. We want to inspire others. And yet somehow we've entered this environment, we've created this environment in the workplace every day that actually marginalizes people in that regard. It causes people to conform to roles and responsibilities and expectations instead of bringing to life people's full potential. And that is really, I think, a design challenge. And we have one of two options with that challenge. We can either, ask that we break the entire systems and start over, or we can empower people to change the systems themselves by leading that human revolution every day that really empowers people to live authentically. And when we do, we think not only is it better for those individuals, their health, their well-being, their abilities, but it's better for the organizations that they work for, and it's better for society. So you said it beautifully, Marina.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Actually, Maria knows that you are part of. Maria is part of our global evolution, if you want. It's not that we want to conquer the world. We want to empower every single person who is alive, while he's alive, not to add days to their life, but to add life to their days. And we created a part of our organization is called Make the News. So basically, we are a channel for good news, because you are the good news, Arthur. Think about it. You bring so much to the table. Oh my God. I remember when I was asked before, what do you bring at the table? I was thinking, oh my God, what can I bring at the table? I have nothing to bring. And now I'm bringing the table. Wherever I go, I bring the table. If it's a conference, if it's an event, if it's anything there is, I will bring at least a table with people sitting around that table who could create and deliver value. And making the news, in a sense, is not the broadcasting organizations and media outlets' job. It's a divine job. You have to bring your own news at the table. You have to bring the light on somebody else's dark sky, because each one of us got something, a solution to a struggle. Why would you let other people struggle with the same struggle? I think that doesn't allow progress. So empowering each individual to understand their own abilities and talent beyond any limiting beliefs, helping people to step out of the social conditioning, thinking, oh, I'm just a this or that, understanding that you are everything and you have it all. It is a job, and to have this, we've been entrusted, I believe, by our own gift with this mission to help others see themselves for who they truly are, not for what they've been told they are or they could be. I remember back while my younger son was a student, he was told that the best he can do is to work in an office. And now he got his doctorate. He's creating system that works. He creates a system that works for entrepreneurs who got an open mind, and they understand that it's not about them, it's about the people they could help. And I'm thinking back now, how ridiculous was that assessment he received when he was a teenager. And I'm thinking how blessed I am that he didn't bought into that. But so many other people, thousands, millions of people who went through the process of being assessed, they've been told they could only do that, or they could only be that. And at the end of the day, learning that you are not born to do things, you are born to be yourself is a process, is a thought process. And I think this is our role. This is our different levels. Of course, I'm not as far into helping people as you are, Arthur, but I'm doing my bit, and I'm getting younger, and there is nothing that I can physically think would stop me give and give and give, because I feel this abundant love for people. And I look at every single person coming on my path. I'm thinking, they got it so wrong, I have to wake them up. And sometimes it's very difficult to express your thoughts about a total stranger, and tell them, look, you have it all, because perhaps they won't understand the language. But there are methods, of course, that are different. Like yourself, you created a program that helps hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people around the world. And it's almost like you need the community to back you up. You need to think, actually, I'm not mad. Having a big idea doesn't make me a mad person. Makes me somebody who is aware of my own powers, and I have this moral duty to activate those powers. Sorry, over to you, Maria.
Thank you, Marina. And I wanted to pick up on the point that Marina made, that really alerted me as well. I mean, obviously, Marina is very, very inspiring. When she created this, the Radio Works, and she gives everybody in the world an opportunity to launch themselves out, and to speak up. And so the theme of purpose leadership was something that I came up with, and she just completely gave control over to me. And I thought, this is one thing that I want to latch onto, because I'm working on this, and I truly believe in it. But I wanted to pick up on the point that she just lastly made, and expand on that a little bit with you, Arthur, as well. In terms of education, right, at school, I don't know whether you have that in the US and also, Marina, in the UK, but here in Asia, there are a lot of educational systems in our countries in Asia where they're extremely competitive. Like, look at China, they're always looking at the IQ levels, not EQ levels. They're looking at the grades, and they're comparing with the grades around the countries, the sophisticated countries, developed countries. And basically, one of the major concerns around here is, schools are just to enter as a student, to enter a school, it's becoming extremely competitive. It is not worthwhile if you just have the money. You've got to have very good grades. And so what I've noticed personally over the years living here in Asia is that there's a couple of things. Kindergarteners are getting competitive to get in. And then there's the next step, which is the primary school and the middle school and the high school and the universities and so forth. It's all about grades. Now, kids are getting suicidal because there's so much pressure. Parents are getting extremely mad. They don't necessarily build a relationship with their kids anymore. And all they do is give pressure, because they believe, like Arthur, you were saying exactly the opposite. Parents are putting a lot of pressure here in Asia, and I'm sure a lot of parts of the world as well. You've got to study so that you can make better money, better living. So parents and the Gen X and prior generations, they went through paying their dues. They probably didn't, they weren't born into the middle class. They had to work really hard, double, triple jobs, so that their children would have a better standard of living. And so they have mentalized their children in the next generations to study harder, get a better job. And that's equivalent to them here. I'm hoping that the millennials are growing up in a different manner. Now, I do a lot of work on the leadership development. In fact, my work is primarily on leadership development. And I work with these parents. Some of them are, 40 and above. And they still have a certain mentality in terms of you've got to study, you've got to at least get to college, because otherwise, you can't make a living. The millennials don't think like that. They're thinking about purpose. They're thinking about building a CV, yes, for sure, building a CV for 2 years, 4 years max, but they're no longer loyal to organizations because they don't find meaning on that type of, having a status, having career, having money. Although there are certain parts of China and many parts of, different geographies in Asia that would still say, we've got to build that status first, build the money first, and then I can think about becoming an entrepreneur or doing something more purposeful. So I wanted to get back to the topic of education. What do you both think about that? Because it's concerning me a lot. I'm really worried about this.
Absolutely. Well, I would start by just saying that the earlier on in life we can get people to ask the very important questions of, who am I, where am I at my best, and why am I here? I think the better we are equipping people to be resilient and their full selves in whatever they do. And I think, unfortunately, what we tend to have people ask themselves is more, how much money do I want to make? How do I want to be perceived? What do I want to achieve? And those are important questions, but they don't get to the heart of purpose. What we've found is that the people who are most purpose-oriented have a level of self-awareness at a younger age. They tend to be way more, aware of where they're at their best. They're way more aware of what brings out the fullest in their experiences every day. So for me, it comes down to not just educating people vocationally, but educating people holistically, helping them reach these amazing states of self-awareness, and helping them be surrounded by an incredible support community of people who are encouraging them to do the same. So the earlier we can get people to ask these questions, the better. And I think this does mean that as parents and as role models, we have to tell our kids a new story about work. We do not just need to tell them that work is a means to an end, that you conform to your job. Your job is a chore, but that you bring out your full self in your work every day, and that your work can be an expression of who you are. So setting that high bar, setting that example. For schools, it means looking more holistically at how we educate the whole person, mind, body, and spirit, not just to help people vocationally succeed, but actually help people gain a heightened level of self-awareness. And I think that also means for us in our early experiences when we're recruiting people, to not just look at them as employees, but look at them as new members of our community. I think that means changing that social contract we have with our earliest employees and their jobs.
Wow, I love it. And you know what? Two things pop to my mind right now. And for me, people are as good as their ideas. As long as you share your ideas and you make the good news with your good ideas, and you deliver your stardust, is who can compete with you? I mean, you could only compete against yourself, against your own limitations. And I helped in the last couple of years. I traveled the world. I had a book tour around the world for 1,000 days. And during these 1,000 days, I met amazing people. And some of them, they were world-class athletes, and I helped them write their story. And what I learned from them is that when are they on the field, they don't compete against the other athletes. They only compete against themselves. And there are 5 different stories I help them deliver and put together as a book. And every single one of them, even different topics, if you want, they tackle different subjects, and they talk about their own passion. It is always the fact that they had to compete, they had to awaken and compete against themselves. The other aspect to to your question, Maria, is that becoming aware of your self-worth makes it very easy to understand that actually you are so unique that it doesn't even make sense to compete against others. You could only compete against yourself. Doesn't matter your age. And I have a granddaughter, and she's 2. She recently turned 2. And we are playing, and we do lots of um, outdoor, hours when we are together. And I wish I could spend more time with her. And we went in High Park, and she was looking at the sky, and she was looking at the sky, telling me that more birds are coming. And I said, after 5 minutes or so, I said, okay, they will come later. Let's go. But she said no. And she hold on my hand. She's just tiny, a little angel. And she hold on my hand so tight, said, more birds are coming. And you know what? Within another 2 minutes, the sky was filled with birds. It was like, I don't know where from, how they choose High Park at that moment in time, but there's so many birds. And I still believe that desire, your desire, something that is helping your energy to attract what you wish, what you desire. But really, the question is, how bad do you want what you want?
Absolutely, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. And what Athol was just saying, it makes a lot of sense as well. And it's a combination to what Marina was saying. You have to have that mentorship ever since you're little, because lack of that, it's going to be really tough. I work with leaders that today, because of that lack of mentorship from their parents, also because they didn't know better and didn't have that support. Today, they could be 50 plus and they're working in front of me, learning leadership development. That's great. I honor them that they're learning. Having said that, they're still at loss with their purpose. And that's one of the reasons I like working with people, because no matter what you're doing, for as long as you are there to serve, there's always something that you can do. There's always, leadership is all about every day making a positive difference to whomever that shows up in front of you, no matter how little it is that you're making a difference. If it's positive, that's just huge fulfillment for me personally. I wanted to shift the topic a little bit, not going away from purpose, still very much on the purpose, but going a notch higher in terms of impact. So we came talking from the level of self-awareness and on an individual level. But Arthur, what do you actually do? What is the type of magic that you do when you're helping organizations create purpose? How does that work? Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So for us, the conversation of organizations' purpose all starts with the individual. I see a lot of organizations go through this classic exercise of getting their executives in a room, whiteboarding an organizational mission, usually with a consultant who then helps them, crystallize that in a really articulate way, wordsmiths it, and then they basically disseminate it to their people, and they've decided this is our purpose. And for us, that question actually starts more with each of your people. Instead of asking what is simply our purpose as an organization and stopping there, let's actually ask each person what really drives them, what they stand for, what they articulate as their, them at their very best. So we have built tools at Imperative that help an individual answer that question for themselves. And that is, who do you seek to serve every day? What impact do you want to make? What do you stand for? And what makes you unique? What are your real superpowers? If an individual can answer those questions, and we've given them a framework that helps them answer those questions more easily, then they really have this rubric or this framework that they can apply to every aspect of their work, from the story they tell to the way they approach their daily tasks to the way they build connections and relationships with their colleagues. So we've built these very scalable tools through assessment-based approaches that get people to answer that question of sort of, what is my purpose? What is my North Star? From there, we ask the question then of how much fulfillment are you experiencing? And for us, that is measured on 3 levels: the depth of your relationships, your level of impact, and your level of growth. We call this RIG. And this is our barometer for people's level of purpose, level of fulfillment. And what we've learned is it's not enough for people to figure out the direction they're going in. That's their North Star. That is their purpose. They need to then really hold themselves to the standard of bringing fulfillment to their daily work. And that requires investment, that requires focus, and it requires time. So in mixing this idea of sort of helping every person gain their North Star, but then measure their RIG every day in their daily work, we really believe that everyone can really develop that sense of personal agency to bring purpose to the work they're doing.
Wow, that's amazing. I was actually going to ask you, what would be the 2 or 3 tips you would give everyone for free in this show in terms of how to actually find our own purpose. Do you have anything to add to what you just said, or this, this was clearly a measurement of fulfillment. But what would you say in terms of like 2 or 3 tips in terms of helping people gain that purpose?
Absolutely. Well, I think the first is, it's overcome the myths of purpose. We've learned that we've created myths about purpose, what it is and isn't, that have largely implied that it's not possible in every job or for every individual. So the first is, purpose is a choice. Everyone makes a choice of whether they invest in purpose or they don't, whether they will be a victim of their job or whether they take ownership, right? So purpose is a choice. It's possible in every job, and it's not a one-time discovery. It's not a destination, it's a journey. So it's a continuous discovery process. Finding purpose is constantly peeling back layers in the onion. So I would say first, frame purpose in a way that makes it human. It's not only in some jobs, it's not a destination, it's not a luxury, right? Instead, everyone can seek it out. It's your choice, and it's a constant discovery process. Then I would encourage you to answer these 3 questions. Sort of, who do I want to serve every day? What impact do I want to make? What do I stand for? What are my core values that make me who I am? And when I am at my best, what kind of work am I doing? What are my unique superpowers that make me special? And if you can answer those 3 questions, the who I impact, why I'm here, and how I work to bring my best out, you actually have the structure for your own purpose statement. And what's powerful about that purpose statement is it's just as relevant in 10 years as it is today. That purpose statement, that North Star, in answering those questions, will be with you throughout the rest of your life. So for me, that purpose statement is it's to create impact for organizations and teams. That's been part of who I've been since the beginning. My unique values, what I stand for, is all about unearthing potential, realizing untapped opportunity, helping people unleash their greatest potential. And the way that I've always done that's made me unique, has always been about building community. It's always been about bringing people together. And so for me, those 3 things have always been part of my purpose. And I know that even if I change roles or industries in 10 years, those 3 things will be present in who I am.
Wow. That's it. That is exactly what I was looking for. And I think you wrapped it up really well. At the end of the day, Arthur was just saying, it doesn't matter what your job is in 2 years, in 5 years, in 10 years, in 20 years, your job can change, but your purpose doesn't, because that's you. Arthur, thank you so much. Marina?
Yes, I absolutely, I was writing notes, and even there were the thoughts I had in my mind, and I feel so related to what Arthur was saying. I still believe that there is a tendency or a social conditioning element that allow people to play down their unique talent. And because they play it down, it's like when you eat less and less, your stomach will shrink. So you'll need less and less. So it's the same with your, I put it in a very bad metaphor, but that's the reality of it. So don't let your talent shrink, because you have to invest in who you are, and you are your talent. And you are chasing opportunities, that's true. And I've been doing that for decades. And then 5 years ago, I become the opportunity. But it took me a lot of work, internal work, that it's an inside job, if you want, to grow into the person I could be. And the reason there is nothing between who you are and where you are right now and where you want to be, where you belong, where you could be, who you could become, is because you have to allow yourself to go through the pain of growing your own wings. You can create wealth for yourself right now, but you have to focus on becoming the opportunity you seek.
So what I've heard so far, in summary, is purpose is kind of like learning a new language. I mean, all of us can find it, and all of us, have the capability of reaching and getting fulfillment towards that purpose, our own unique purpose. But it's like a language. So if you don't practice it, you can't be fluent. You can't be fluent in it.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't matter what is the job that you're taking, but if you're focused, you're constantly peeling your onion and every day uncovering and discovering about yourself, your purpose is going to grow. Does that make sense?
Maria, I jumped into, because I'm so passionate about this. Words got power, tremendous power. And yes, any of us could found themselves into a difficult set of circumstances at any given moment. Doesn't matter, it's health related, relationship related, socially related, internally related, whatever it might be. And yes, you might not be able to change your circumstances. And yet, as human beings, we have this tremendous ability to use the power of our words, to change your words. The words you talk to yourself, when you talk to yourself, the way you tell your story when nobody else is listening, that is crucial. So instead of thinking of yourself, that little voice which is there all the time, and is telling you are not good enough, you are a failure. If you realize that you have the power to turn it around 180 degrees and create a big voice, a confident voice about yourself, that is going to allow you to see that you are able. You are not a disabled person. Even when you are disabled, even when reality goes against you, you still have so much to work with. And the only thing you have to do is to focus on what you already have. And yes, there are people who are going there trying to learn different skills, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think that diminishes the time you allow yourself to focus on what you already have, what you are really brilliant at, the core of who you are. And I think once you acknowledge that talking to yourself, telling yourself a story about yourself is the most important story you'll ever be inspired or broken by. It's the story you are telling yourself when nobody else is listening, could make or break you. And that is one element, the power of words, that I think should be mandatory. I think should be part of the curriculum. I think children could start learning very early the language. And I know it's NLP and it's a lot going on, and perhaps Arthur could expand a lot more on that because of his expertise within the employment dimension and where that
absolutely. Well, I couldn't agree more, and I would just echo what Marina was saying by saying that it's a simple but pretty profound realization that we have built the wrong framing around purpose, and in creating this culture that purpose is only possible outside of work, and that work is only about money and status. And purpose is this far away thing that you only really will discover one day in retirement, or if you accompany Julia Roberts to Bali on an Eat, Pray, Love retreat. We've really found that we have to tell a whole new story about purpose, and we have to destigmatize purpose and break it down into really easy bite-sized chunks that are possible for every single person to answer and think about and act on. And it's such a powerful idea that no one is distant from that capability. You can take everything from a person, and I'll give you the best example of this. Viktor Frankl, who had everything taken from him, his family, his materials, his social identity, everything was taken from him. And in a concentration camp, Frankl said the only thing he could hold on to was his ability to choose how to react. And within that choice, he found purpose. So I come back to that, the lowest common denominator of having everything taken from you in a concentration camp, and still having the ability to find purpose. And that is really the power of purpose, is it is possible for everyone. We have to tell a new story about it. We have to have this common language. So I completely agree. Words are so meaningful. They are so powerful. And if everyone has the ability to articulate something so core to who they are, the world will be a better place. The world will simply be a better place. Work will be better. People will be better.
That's amazing. Arthur, we're just about reaching the hour. I wanted to just have a little bit of a show in terms of where you're spread. I know that you work with organizations, and one of the biggest reasons that I wanted you to be on our show today was that to inspire everybody that is listening, and hopefully people will, and since this recording is going to go to YouTube, that, you know, hopefully people will Google us around and YouTube us around and hear this conversation with you, that it's so immensely valuable and nurturing and inspiring. I would love for you to tell us a little bit as the final point in this chat. You know, who are you helping? I know it's organizations that you're helping, but are you going into schools so that entrepreneurs, corporate entrepreneurs, individuals that are inspired by this discussion today and many others that you've done with other organizations, that they actually get a glimpse of, you know, how to reach you, and, you know, for whatever that purpose is, you know, if they get sent to you, it's all good. So I'm just trying to make that connection and help to build that community. Would you tell us a little bit more in terms of where you are?
Absolutely. Thank you, Maria. And you know, we are, you know, really positioned right now in Imperative to work with organizations who are wanting to make purpose part of their culture, part of their employee value proposition, part of the experience they craft for their people every day. So we work with, you know, every organization from Sony Music and Campbell's all the way down to smaller organizations, you know, small nonprofits, who are really committed to making this not just rhetoric, part of their marketing materials, but actually an embedded experience that they create for their people every day. By embedding the science of purpose in the employee experience and the talent lifecycle. In the coming year, we are starting to partner more with external leaders, consultants and coaches who deliver this type of work to their clients, their individual, you know, team members, their individual clients, as well as the organizations they support, so that tools for discovering purpose and diagnosing purpose at an individual and team level can really be possible, can be scaled. So we've built a whole certification model, both for businesses and organizations, and then in the future, increasingly for consultants and coaches. And that really is our mission, is building community around purpose, creating a whole globe of thought partners, and not to replace the amazing work that they're doing, but to amplify it. And so if you're interested in this, you know, certainly go to imperative.com and write us and let us know, and you know, request an overview or a demo, you know, request a purpose profile. and we would love to build a connection with you and bring you into this community.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing that. That was the link that I wanted to get out to the world. And yeah, get Arthur in touch. Get in touch with him and his team, because these guys are amazing. Marina, what are some of your last words? What would you like to share with us?
I hope they're not the last, but
no, for this session today, because it's been over an hour.
I like to believe that even this interview, which is an audio interview, could be repurposed. And we very soon we are launching on the 2nd of October the first Sovereign, which is a global magazine for heart-centered entrepreneurs. So what we do, because we are obsessed about delivering instead of creating all the time, we can repurpose this interview, Arthur, if you agree, and we could publish it into the Sovereign.
I would
And
love that.
More people, because we distribute the magazine within airlines and airports, and where busy people spend a lot of time. So I think it will inspire a lot of people to understand two words: free flow. You have to allow yourself to grow, and you have to invest in risky assets, your dream, your purpose. And you really have to learn your strength by heart. It's not about your weaknesses, it's about your strength, how you master them, because you are Stardust.
Thank you so much, Marina. That was amazing. Arthur, thank you so much for coming onto the show and sharing so much valuable information, being so inspiring. People like you, I aspire to be. And if I could get a piece of you anytime, any day, I'd be just so happy. So thank you again for being on the call with us today.
Well, thank you both for curating this conversation and this community, because we can do, but we also need to talk about what we do, and that's part of building this movement. So I am thrilled to see where Radio Works goes, and to see that this conversation is expanding, and it's as no surprise, because we're in need of more community around this topic. So thank you for all that you're both leading, and I'm so excited to see where this amazing movement will go together.
Thank you. And let's stay in touch, because I'm sure that 2018, I'm going to give you a call and interview you again.
I'm excited for it.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, Marina.
You are Stardust. Thank you.